Okay, we are ready.
All right. Welcome everyone to well, we're starting with the budget presentation. So, Milburn School District 24 public hearing on our amended fiscal year 2021 budgets. Should we start this one with a pledge?
Yeah, we can do pledge. We'll have to do it.
Or do we have to do a roll call?
Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Petarini?
Here.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Here.
Ms. Voss? Here. Mr. Quinones?
Present.
Mr. Coleman?
You didn't call me?
Mr. Murphy.
I'm here.
My computer went out and I had to reprint all this, so I'm sorry, it has to only.
Shall we stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone. Glad to see everybody in person. We have the fiscal 2021 budget, in which we are transferring interest from debt service fund to the transportation fund, to the operations, and the maintenance fund. It looks like a lot of stuff is going on, but we're just making sure the budget is balanced. Do we have a presentation? Oh, do we have any comments from the public?
I do not see any comments from the public.
I emailed you a comparison of the amended budget on display and the amended budget as recommended tonight as well. If you want to pull that up, I don't think that got attached
Did you just email to me?
just now. Right before we did the pledge. So just to summarize, in the education fund, I added salaries for the summer program that were not originally in there. Also, there was a little bit of employee benefits as well, the TRS and IMRF for the and Social Security. Non-capitalized equipment, we had actually spent more than what I originally budgeted there, so I added some there. Everything else pretty much remained the same. Debt service didn't change. Scroll on down to IMR Social Security. I didn't change that. And I didn't change, no changes to the tort. Scroll back up again, let's do the right side then. These are all expenditures. And there's a separate page for revenue. For O&M, employee benefits, I had to increase that line from 130,000 to 147. Purchase supplies and materials went down less than $1,000. Capital outlays stayed the same. Everything else is the same. Transportation, benefits again went up a little, as well as purchase services, just a couple $1,000. Go ahead and scroll on down. Nothing else there. Capital projects, I don't think there were any. There was a $50 supplies and materials added. That wasn't in there before, but that's the only change there. Life safety, there were no changes. And then the revenue side, I don't think I really showed any major changes there. Okay, then the the next part is the transfers. Originally, I had looked to transfer, I believe it was 600,000 to capital projects. No, I think it still was 600. So from 650 to 600, the, no changes to the education fund, and those were transfers out. Transfer of interest, that didn't change, and nothing changed in transportation. On the transfers in though, instead of shifting all of those dollars to O&M and capital projects, from the transportation fund, we moved 250,000 of the 750,000 transfer into the education fund so that it balanced, and 500,000 into the O&M fund instead of 750 that I had originally. So 250 into, it's still 750 total, but 250 went into education and 500,000 went into O&M. And then no changes on the debt service and capital projects, reduced it from 650,000 to 600,000.
Dr. Jones, I just have a question. I mean, there's no real material changes. The only question I have is on the non-capitalized equipment. What is that comprised of?
It's equipment that is greater than $500 and less than $2,500.
Okay, so
500
is
to
your
$2,499, and then 2,500 and up is capitalized.
Okay,
And then, probably ought to mention what we kind of talked about the transfers. The one thing that may seem a little odd, but it's the only way to do it within the budget document, is the transfer from transportation to operations and maintenance. I can't transfer money directly from transportation to capital projects. So we have to transfer it into operations and maintenance and then transfer from there into capital projects. So that's why you have an additional resolution to move it from operations and maintenance into the capital projects fund.
Anybody have questions on our budget? It doesn't look like there's any public presenters for the budget. So if there is no other questions or concerns, I motion we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And our budget presentation is adjourned. And we move right on over to our regular school board meeting. The regular meeting, June 28th, 2021, for the Millburn School District 24 Board of Education. If we can have another roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Here.
Ms. Boss?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Pederini?
Here.
Mr. Quinones?
Here.
We've done the Pledge of Allegiance, and I assume we don't have any public comments.
Still no public comments.
Does anybody have any non-action items they would like to add? Action items. Approval of kindergarten reconstruction.
We talked about this briefly at our last meeting, where we're shifting FTE from paraprofessional support into a classroom teacher to lower the class size of kindergarten.
We have a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve item A.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Moving on to the approval to ratify paraprofessionals and school-related personnel agreements. We have a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Do you guys want to explain anything, or does anybody have any questions on this? We've all had a chance to look at it. Looked at it, if you're good with it, then we can go to a roll call vote.
Once again, great job, John.
Thank you. Same to you. It should be us motion.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion to approve of classified salary recommendations.
I move to approve the classified salary recommendations.
Second.
Does anybody have questions on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion to approve the Milburn salary rates.
Motion to approve the Milburn salary rates.
Second.
Does anyone have questions on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion for the approval of increase of .1, is that .1 full-time
It's point-
equivalent? So .1 full-time equivalent, adaptive PE.
So moved?
Seconded.
Do we have any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion for the approval of the increase of the one full-time equivalent nurse.
So moved. Second.
Comments or questions?
So this, we talked about this is just keeping her for an additional year, is that right? And then that's all we get? Is it? Okay.
And then just so you're aware too, this would be paid out of the ESSERS 2 grant. So we'll be using the federal funds because of the contact tracing and all the other things that go along with that.
Nice.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion to approve the direct placement agreement with Maximum Healthcare Services.
Make a motion to approve the direct placement agreement, with Maximum Healthcare Services.
Second?
Questions?
Yeah, may we have a quick summary on this again?
So in order to get out, because she was contract this year, we
Yep.
contracted her with an agency, so to
Okay.
get her out of that contract, we're gonna have to pay
Okay,
placement
so we did
fee.
a
cover that.
placement fee.
That's why, yeah, I just wanted context.
Didn't-
Okay.
Do we know exactly what that was yet, or no?
The
Yeah.
amount,
Yeah.
7,000.
That's on the agreement here.
Do we get to take that out of the Esther's contract? The Esther's?
I believe so. That's what I'm gonna try.
If we can.
Yeah.
Because she's already worked here, continuation of services and training, and she's
$7,002, 7002.
Interesting.
Even if we got John on it, I bet we could get it down to 7,000.
Easy.
Well, no, they already told me that they did 15% in there instead of their normal 20.
I don't even have to show up on that.
The
They
legend
just heard
grows.
about it.
Thank you very much, John, we appreciate the hard work. Here we have a roll call, please.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pederini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
the motion passed.
A motion for the approval of increase of a .5 full-time equivalent media clerk.
Make a motion for an increase of a half of a full-time media clerk.
Second.
Do you have a question, please? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pederini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
the motion passed.
We have a motion to approve the contract for Principal Ben Walshire as presented.
So moved.
So I have a question, since we all looked these over, is there a way to make a motion and combine items A through K? Or does anybody have a reason to pull something out of that? Is that allowed?
It's allowed, yes.
Okay,
It's up to you.
does anybody
Flip
have
them all
anything
together?
wrong with that?
Can we go?
Can we
L?
go-
Can we go through M? I think, you know,
I
at
just-
least it's L is all
Yeah.
same subject.
Good call, yeah, let's go.
I thought.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the contracts, agenda item 6, I through L.
Second.
Okay. Do people have questions on these contracts? Well, if we can have the roll call, please.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pederini,
Yes.
the motion passed.
All right. Thank you for that shortcut.
Yeah,
Can
nice.
we have a motion to approve school lunch fees for 2021-22 school year?
Oh, go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Let me give you
Lisa.
some clarification on this too. Next year, there will be no
Right.
charge for lunches, but because, costs are still going up, USDA as well as, State Board of Education recommend that we increase prices by 10 cents. Just so that we keep them in line, so this is gonna be the published rates, although because of the free lunches for next year, there'll be no charge to any of the students for the 21-22 school year. There will be charges for some of the beverages and things if they get additional items. A lot of those the majority of those are at the middle school.
Is this something that goes up every year, like basically 5 cents, 10 cents?
Typically,
Just-
there
just to
actually
keep
is
current?
there's a calculation that we have to do to determine if it needs to go up. I have yet a year that it didn't go up. Oh, no, I should take that back. There was one year that we didn't increase prices. But basically, they're trying to make sure that the amount that we're charging full-pay students is not less than the amount that we receive in reimbursement from the federal government. So they're wanting to make sure that we keep the base price high enough that we're not subsidizing lunches for students who receive no assistance with federal dollars. Does that make sense?
Even
Yeah.
if they don't have to pay for it.
Correct. Because this just sets the price, and then the price will be adjusted for the following year when they will have to pay.
All right, any other questions or comments? We could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Federini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We have a motion to approve the district consolidated plan and federal grants as listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have questions on these grants?
Let me mention one thing, that can we have the minutes reflect that the Title I application is a school-wide application instead of a targeted application? Which means that we can spend the money on either school and the entire school population, as opposed to targeting students, specific students. At least that's what the definition that I found said, so.
So these are all grants that we've already secured?
No, these are grants that we've been designated this money, and now we have to, apply for them. So there's an consolidated district application is what we're approving. So a few years ago, the state decided to make the system more efficient and do a consolidated plan instead of individually applying for each of these grants. But because Melbourne never applied for Title I in the past, because the number was lower than this and it didn't really pay, it was way more work for us. So what they did is now we have this consolidated district plan, and it's just all kinds of forms we fill out. And one of the check boxes is that the board approves the consolidated district plan, like you're doing tonight, so we can check it out, put a date in it, and get approved for this money.
And then also approve the school-wide Title I program.
Right. Because now we're doing Title I, because it's more significant, way more significant dollars now with Title I, so.
And in order to get the ESSER's 3 funds, which I don't have listed on here yet, that application's not gonna be available till the 1st of July. But there's also a public hearing and everything else we have to do with that one as well, so. You'll see that one again, like that one's 368,000, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's more than any of the previous ones have been.
Right.
Is there a qualification for the Title I? Like Title I is about, like, economic.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's based on the number of free and reduced lunch
Okay.
participants that we have in our school district.
Okay.
So, when you went to look at the school report card, there's a percentage of free and reduced lunch population. That's what it's based on. And Melbourne in the past was under 2-3%. But some of those rules have changed, so then we jumped up to 15%, and it's continuing to grow a little bit. Therefore, our Title I monies are growing, and now they're kicking in the ESSER's funding, saying if you can only get the ESSER's money if you take the title money. Okay, that for 368,000, we will definitely do that. Not a problem.
Any other questions? Roll call please, Brian.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Ms. Boss? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Federini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
The motion passed.
We can have a motion for the approval of the appointment of a district treasurer and approve the treasurer's bond in the amount of $6 million.
Should be mentioned
So
here.
moved.
Yeah,
Second.
yeah, the current treasurer is Gary White, so I don't know if you want to include that in your, and he's agreed to do that for an additional year. If you want to include that in the motion.
Should we amend the motion to include the name Gary White?
Yes.
I'm not, I don't know how it's been done in the past. To me, it seems that we're approving the role, the appointment of the role.
Well, the
or
actual
individual
bond, the actual
to the
bond
role.
has the individual's name on the bond.
Division. Okay.
And there is a stipend that goes along with that district treasurer position. A little over $5,000 a year.
Okay, gentlemen, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of appointment of Gary White to the district treasurer position and approve the treasurer's bond in the amount of $6 million.
Second.
Does anybody have questions on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Petterini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones.
Yes.
The amended motion passed.
Can we have a motion for the approval of fund transfer resolutions?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the fund transfer resolutions.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss, Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Petterini.
Yes.
The motion passed.
I'd like to, do we have a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2021 amended budget?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2021 amended budget.
Second.
Questions on the budget?
This is a balanced budget. I don't know if we emphasize that in the hearing part, but it is a balanced budget, again.
Okay.
We get some consulting to the federal government. Dr. Johnson.
They can't afford it. Roll call, please.
Mr. Petterini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss. Yes. Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
the motion passed.
Does anybody have anything they want to pull out of the consent agenda? If I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Questions?
And what's the activity account?
It's basically a separate, account that we have for,
It's for student activities, so it's
Yeah.
a flow-through account that has student activities only through it, so it's not tax money or government, federal money, state money that we get, it's money that parents would give for yearbook or for band or.
no, well, actually, all those had to be shifted into the ed fund.
But
So
that's-
this is just what's left. So whatever's in there, whatever accounts are in there, you can see all the other accounts that used to be there. So there's a choir music boosters, there's a drama club, Milburn Garden Fund.
So we're approving that we open an activity account, or?
No, this is just the monthly report.
Oh,
They're
okay.
every month.
I got you.
So it shows, what the balances are and what checks were written that month.
Okay.
And there's board policy that governs the management of the activity account. But I can't remember what the number is.
And then this fund is also
There is
audited by the auditors.
Or something. Yeah, it is audited, very tightly regulated. To avoid shenanigans.
It's all about avoiding shenanigans.
We don't want any shenanigans.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? We need a roll call on this, right?
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Petterini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss. Yes. The motion passed.
All right, and that takes us to the information and discussion.
Okay, so we have, two FOIA requests that are on there, and they are directly related to, bids that we had out. One is asbestos and one, are they both asbestos? Yeah, they're both related to the asbestos bids, so they're companies that bid and want us to show them what everybody else did, so that they can know for next time, I guess. Or if they, sometimes they look at, to make sure that we're going with the lowest bidder, or knowing who else is, where everybody else is at.
And the second one, I believe, is probably the union.
Yeah,
The
because they
laborers
wanna,
union.
they also wanna check who won the bid, so that they can check that company, to make sure that they're, paying union wage. Because school districts have to pay prevailing wage, which is generally the union wage in our area, so the union wants to make sure that we're not hiring somebody that's paying non-union workers a lower wage.
Is that a requirement for us to check prior to accepting the
There,
bid?
it's part of the bid
It's
process.
part of the bid process, and then they have to provide, documents showing, we get like a payroll, certified payroll.
So we have to check the certified payroll, like, if they cheat on it, we have to do our end of it and check. But if they cheat on it, they're liable.
Right. And eventually, that they've already changed the process, but the state isn't set up to accept them yet, where those certified payrolls would go directly to the Department of Labor. But that's not set up yet, so they still come to us. But at some point in the future, we won't be responsible for collecting those anymore.
Take something off the plate, cool. How's summer school going?
Summer school's great. It's first session is over. Very successful. A lot of positive feedback from the middle school kids, especially with the younger kids too. They were very excited and happy to be here. On the last day, of course, we had an ice cream truck, and when I greeted the kids off the bus, I said, "Hey, good morning, ice cream," was their only response. Man, you guys, it was really cute, but I was a little worried about our priorities. It's fun. And it wasn't just one kid, it was at least 5 kids. Like, when do we get ice cream? And then every time when I walk down the hall, they're asking their teacher, when's ice cream?
Sounds like my boy.
Yeah.
Our parents have been telling us about this for a week.
Right.
Go to school, you'll get ice
Bribing.
cream.
Sure, whatever it takes. Session 2, we have 4 weeks off, and then session 2 starts up for 2 weeks. More of a jump start to get ready for the fall, and we'll probably have another 200 kids sign up for that, so that's great.
So they still have time to sign up if they want.
We have, well, we've closed registration because we're having a hard time hiring enough teachers to teach it. It's, teachers are tired, it's been a long year, and so they want the summer off, and so we've been fortunate enough to get enough teachers to do it, but we don't want the class sizes to get too big, so we kinda cut it off. If there's room and somebody requests it, sure, we'll do what we can.
Sounds good. All right, future agenda items, press policy updates.
Always.
Superintendent's report.
Boy, I don't have much new to report that hasn't been done. We've been awfully busy with summer school now. Hopefully we can relax for a week or so, maybe. That's about it. That's it for me.
Business office report.
Probably the only thing that I'll mention that we haven't already talked about is the power outage we had on June 18th. For whatever reason, the generator didn't kick on. It would kick on for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then it would kick off again. We did have somebody here last week from the, whatever the company is that maintains the generator. He's actually coming back again Thursday morning at 5:30, shut the power down and make sure that it will kick on, and then he'll also see, we're also gonna determine exactly what is fed off of it. The one thing we did learn that is not fed off the generator is the sump pump in the lower level of that 2-story section, because as a result, we had water again. Luckily, the floor tile had not been laid yet. So we'll get a proposal from them. It appears that there's more than enough capacity in the generator to add the sump pumps in that lower level. Is it transfer stations or lift stations? whatever in the courtyard as well as in the west gym are connected to the generator, as well as the cooler and the freezer and all the technology. But they're gonna verify what else is connected. But, you know, since it didn't work, we moved all the items out of the cooler into a truck over to the middle school, and then a couple hours later, brought them all back after the power came on. We had just started moving things out of the freezer when the power came on. And the freezer was still well below the stage where we would have to dispose of anything. We didn't lose any food, so that's a positive thing, but it is frustrating. The other thing that happened, and I'm assuming it probably was a surge, but the parking lot lights were damaged, both in the front as well as in the rear. They're still, actually the electrician's gonna be back again out this week to really assess what happened, but there actually were like marks on the, so we don't know if maybe lightning hit one of the poles. There's actually marks on the poles in the rear of the building, but he's gonna assess what additional damage besides the contactor switches were damaged. But some of that we may not know until we start replacing parts, and then if it still doesn't work, then they'll find something else that's a problem. But we did, Terry Miller contacted the insurance company and filed a claim. We also had a control board on one of our copiers that also was damaged. So that's also part of the insurance claim. Seems like we've always had problems with the power ever since I've been here, and I'm guessing it was previous to that as well.
Can I go back and mention?
You can go back and-
I forgot to mention, there's been no news lately, which is why I haven't mentioned it, about the protocols for next fall as far as distancing and masks and whatever the rules are gonna be for COVID. So we're waiting for that. We're writing another letter today. The Lake County Superintendents, we're putting another letter together today to write to ISB and the governor to say, please, please, please give us some clear guidelines now. We can't wait because we need to start planning for the fall. What that's looking like, parents are reaching out and asking those kinds of questions as well, because they wanna know what the rules are gonna be for the fall. So, there is no news about that. It's been just very, very quiet for a very, very long time from Springfield, so we're waiting patiently. I'll probably send something out this week just because it's July 1st now, just to keep communication with the parents, just to say there's no news. But you can kind of tell when people start to email me questions, it's probably other people are thinking about it, so. That's it.
Do we have any board reports?
I'd like to congratulate Jason's son for his placement in the state wrestling championship.
No,
There.
Well,
That's awesome.
Caleb, yeah. 6th place in the state, so represented Milburn well. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Not a small kid.
He's not a small kid, no. Big.
Football, wrestling, all the fun stuff.
Yep.
So that's a great way to end the senior year, too.
Yep, that was his final day as a Lakes Eagle. His last activity
Pretty good
with the
one.
school, he's done.
Nice, yeah, it's nice to hear the end.
Yeah,
He's
it was a
gonna
great
keep
one.
wrestling?
Wrestling.
It said he's gonna keep going in high school?
He's gonna go in college, he'll be in college next year.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm sorry.
No,
It's getting old.
getting, yeah, I'm not old enough to have a college kid. No, don't feel like it, but, here it is. Seems like you just started kindergarten.
Crazy.
Flies by.
Congratulations.
Crazy, crazy. Fun to watch him grow up though, and his buddies.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of, two, right? Collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employee, just number one. Okay. for number one, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, right, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a public body may not properly discuss budgetary matters in closed session under this exception, even if budgetary matters may directly or indirectly affect its employees. The underlying budget discussions leading to the discussion of a specific employee cannot be held in closed session.
Second.
All in, roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yep.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pederini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned closed session. When we come back, we are we gonna take any actions? I don't think so. We should not take any actions. We will just close the regular session. If any board members would like to take a couple of minutes to break, now's your opportunity while we close.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of